Monkey mind, is there a cure? I thought this picture was worth 1,000 words, because if I explain what the monkey mind is, we all can pick up on it pretty quickly, because we all have one. The question of what is it? It's interesting to me. I did quite a bit of research on the monkey mind this week. Not that I'm already an expert on it, but I did some research to find out what other people say. It's believed that the term originated in Buddhism to describe the constant mental chatter that scrambles through our mind like a troupe of busy monkeys. And the Buddhists have had kind of a front row seat of the monkey mind, because there's temple monkeys. They hang around the Buddhist temples all the time because people are, they feed them and all of that. So they're able to watch. But what's interesting to me is that the term goes back so far that people have recognized for a long time that there's this side of us, the side of our mentality, that is very busy. And it interferes a lot with our peace of mind. In fact, totally interferes with our peace of mind until we begin to recognize it and bring it under some level of control. But it's called other things too. Don, in the books, Carlos Castaneda's books, call it the internal dialogue that goes on all the time. But there's been all kinds of ways. I talk about we talk about the personality, the intellect, the surface mind. Charles Fillmore and many of the early pioneers of the New Thought movement talked about the mass consciousness, or just the overall human consciousness that we can buy into. It's not really ours, but we're part of it. And so it kind of plays along, and we're all subject to our devices these days. There's a lot of media bombardment that we all go through, really without even trying. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of problems that we can carry around with us that otherwise we wouldn't even know about. And we don't want to be trying to go through life with our heads in the sand. I think it's important to stay abreast of things. But on a personal level, and coming from the perspective of spiritual awareness, spiritual development, we're kind of learning to sort out the difference between a perceived reality and reality. And the perceived reality is the one we are usually dealing with, the one we're usually battling. And that can just be, you think a certain thing might be a certain way and you're not quite sure, but it sure appears to be, and the facts all seem to lean in that direction. And have you ever been sitting in a restaurant maybe and you see somebody across the room that looks like they're staring at you? And suddenly you realize that a person walks in the door and they were just watching the front door, and you happen to be in line of their sight. So you're wondering what their problem is. And their problem is their friend has not yet arrived. It's not you. But we will often engage in things that have nothing to do with what's really going on. It's just a perceived notion that we carry. And so it's important for us to learn to separate the difference. When Jesus talked about that my kingdom is not of this world, I've always said that this world that he's talking about is the world of perception. And it's not always accurate. Do not judge according to appearances, he said. And that's part of the monkey mind. Does it all the time. Judges by appearances. That's why it's so busy. The monkey mind generates a false perception of reality that often has us running in fear and anxiety away from possible danger we cannot control. So we have a very large monkey on a bicycle with training wheels chasing a terrified kid, which I thought was a funny picture to kind of illustrate that kind of poke fun at ourselves, because I mean, it's a very unusual picture. It doesn't look like it was staged, but and the orangutan doesn't look too bad, but I just thought it said a lot about what I'm trying to say here, that we can be chased by this fear, by something in us that probably means no harm, but it's a mental construct, a mental and emotional construct that we come up with, and it terrifies us. We've all had them, and in any situation that we go through where we don't know the outcome, and we weren't necessarily part of the creation of whatever the situation is, we can imagine all kinds of things, and we can be chased by these huge monkeys on bicycles with training wheels and run through our life in fear. And so we pray that somehow that big monkey will be taken away, and that perception will be changed. And the reality is there's nothing really chasing us except our own thought. And that's not to say that we don't have challenges in life, because we do. But often we blow them way out of proportion. They become something other than what's really grounded in the fact. And there's no doubt in my mind that this little kid can outrun this monkey on a bicycle. But so why the terror? Why the fear? And we need to kind of take that same perspective ourselves, that next time we find ourselves being chased by something that's going on in our heads and in our hearts, it's a mental and emotional thing. And the more the emotion is involved, the worse it seems to become, the bigger the monkey is. Because then the fear factor really kicks in when we're emotional about it. But if we can recognize, and that's the whole point, is the difference between a mental emotional perception and what's really going on. And I'll share some ideas, some ways to sort that out that are actually practical, where you can change what is going on in yourself right now. It's not just the big monkeys. Our chattering little monkey may not always present as a sense of danger. It may simply rattle on as a preoccupation with perceived possibilities involving the past or future. Mental noise that has no bearing on anything in particular. And I assume that these are the monkeys that get us the most. It's not anything in particular, because if you watch your monkey mind, your mind dart around at, if you've got a big problem, that's one thing. But if you're just going through your normal day, there's nothing looming on the horizon that particularly has your attention, you'll find that your mind shifts around all the time. That it's going to the future, it's going to the past. And I think that that's probably the one that gets us the most, that preoccupies us the most, is that little chattering monkey that it's not anything in particular, but it's everything in general. And to stop and ask yourself once in a while, am I here now? Or am I somewhere in the future or in the past? And so often we are in the future or the past, not literally, because we can only be here in the now moment. And that's it's a very powerful message, that Eckhart Tolle made famous with his Power of the Now. And I have listened to him many times, just a couple days ago, as a matter of fact, being interviewed, and he always brings me back. I really appreciate his message, or that message. It's not his message. But he said at a very low moment in his life, the way he came to this was he was very depressed. And he one night was thinking that he just cannot live with himself anymore. He can't do this anymore. And he said it dawned on him that who is having this dialogue? I can't live with myself. Who's the I that can't live with this self? And he realized that self is the one that's causing the problem. And he said he woke up the next day and just felt a real sense of peace. And he's been on that path ever since. And it's a very subtle thing. You know, we're so programmed to letting our minds drift over everything, and there's a lot of things that can drift over. And one of the reasons we can't blame 100%, we can't blame technology, is because the Buddhists came up with the monkey mind 500 years before Jesus. So it's been around. You know, people have recognized this is a problem. I have thought about prehistoric humanity. Can you imagine what it would be like to wake up every day wondering if you're going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or something? That'd be a pretty big problem, and it would probably be a worthy projection to keep in mind. You know, to always be aware, situational awareness, big time. But the point is, the monkey mind has been recognized for a long time, and we can say, well, it's worse now because we live in, and I believe that's true. I do believe that technology has allowed that. And the fact that we're sitting in this room, at this very moment, we're being bombarded by all kinds of waves. Cell phone waves, television, telephone, computer, internet, 5G, that's supposed to be kind of bad for us, I guess. But all this stuff is hitting us all the time. We don't really have the senses to pick up on that. But I'm sure it's affecting us all. Charles Fillmore talked about that the time to meditate, the best time to meditate is early in the morning before everybody gets up. And I get up early in the morning. I'm an early riser. And I notice that, you know, you get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's very quiet. And then as the hours go by, you can begin to hear more sound, more noise, you know, more traffic. Things are happening. People are stirring. People wake up. And so there's a part of us that picks up on that stuff. And as we pick up on it, it may not be anything definite, but we're sensing something. I think we have that ability to do, but we don't necessarily know what it is. We don't know how it affects us. But it is important for us to be able to discern the difference. When I go into a state of meditation, there is no question that I find my center of power when I do that. There's no question that when I seek to find that center of power and my mind is doing this, I've got a little monkey chattering away, that's not what I'm after. Even the idea of just trying to silence that chatter, to get to a point past that, and there's much more that we're looking for than just to be quiet, to be still and on a surface level. But that's better than nothing, and that's kind of where we're going to focus today. So we need to recognize the difference between life in the here and now and the constant scanning of future and past possibilities. We only worry over things we can do nothing about. These things are mental and emotional projections that have us wrestling with questions of what if, rather than dealing only in the moment with what is. Since I've been speaking, have any of you found that your mind is off somewhere other than here? You don't have to raise your hands. But, you know, I can be talking to you, and that can happen to me. I was thinking about our cats, because they remind me of the monkey mind. We have 3 outdoor cats. We have one that lives indoors all the time. But the 3 that live outdoors, we don't have a cat door because I don't want to run the risk of getting our neighbors' cats, who would love to come in our house as well and do when they can. But the cat will sit out, any one of those 3 cats will sit outside the patio door and look in, longingly. You know, they want to come in. And so we let them in. And 5 minutes later, they're sitting looking out the door, longing to be outside. So wherever they are, they want to be the other place. How many of us do that? I could have named this the kitty mind, but it's not quite as effective as the monkey mind, but they're similar. And I'm not criticizing the cat for doing that because they know they have a door opener and they're going to utilize that, and all they have to do is look longingly and the door opener shows up. But don't we do that as well? You know, we're looking for a thing, a place we want to be, and we get there and find that it's not maybe as fulfilling as we hoped. And so we look someplace else, and we're looking out another door and another place. And that we're kind of driven by never being here, never being in this now moment. For Christmas, Bev got our indoor cat this beautiful bed. It's a very soft, I would like one myself, Bev, if you ever get around. Very soft bed that you just put in a basket, and the little Sadie, or indoor cat, gets in there and she's just like she's drunk on that bed. You know, she's totally conked out. And she's kind of learned the art of be happy where you are. You know, she doesn't want to go outside because she's never really been outside. And in a way, I kind of think that's not a good thing to do with a cat, but she's happy, I think, with her little universe. But she's more content with that place. You know, it's like a difference in, there is a big difference in the kinds of cats. The street cats that we raised from feral, it's a very different mentality than the one that was raised in the house. And so one is more at peace with being where she is, and the others are always in and out. So it's kind of an interesting thing to observe. This picture of the girl, she's being attacked by a monkey, actually, and that's one thing that you really do have to be careful of. Monkeys are cute, but they can be pretty vicious. Jesus recognized the need to still the busy mind. At one point, he said to his disciples, "Come away by yourselves to a lonely place and rest a while." Yet it isn't enough to simply go to a lonely place. We tend to take our monkey with us. And what's interesting about this story in Mark is when Jesus said this, they get into a boat and they head off across the lake to go to a secret place. Well, the audience that was surrounding him saw that they were leaving, and they knew where they were going for some reason, and they actually got there before Jesus and his disciples got there. And you talk about the monkey mind. And the story that follows that is the feeding of the 5,000. So there were a lot of monkeys that showed up at that place where he was wanting to be still. So we try to be still sometimes and find it nearly impossible. We know we need to, but what we're often trying to still is the problem rather than the reaction we're having to it. And that's the only thing that we have control over. We have control over the way we think about things and the way we feel about things. We can actually let those go. And as I say all the time, that's not an act of irresponsibility. We still have the situation there, but what are we doing right now, in this now moment? What are we doing to make our lives better? Are we experiencing the peace that's available, or are we allowing our minds to run wild with the what-ifs that we can so easily imagine? And we can imagine things that never happen. And that's very common, and we're all aware of that. So it's important to pay attention to how we're using our mind. Are we allowing ourselves to be present? Some balk at the idea of practicing the presence in meditation. And this monkey is allowing himself to be present, you can tell. We may want to begin simply with the practice of being present. Mindfulness. And that's a term that's been used. In fact, I would recommend going online, Google that, mindfulness, and you'll find all kinds of... Kelly is the one that introduced me to that idea. But it's a very simple practice of being in the present. And when we talk about practicing the presence, you know, the experience of going within yourself and touching God, many people have trouble with that. And it's understandable. because it's a difficult practice. But to learn to be present is a good first step. It's a good beginning. We can achieve mindfulness by taking a few moments to focus on something as simple as our breath. We can feel and appreciate the warmth of the sun or the loving response of a pet. The practice of being present is a necessary step to becoming aware of the presence. And I did this yesterday. I just, the sun was shining, and we're not in the warmest time of the year, of course, but when the sun is shining, I took a lawn chair and went out and sat in the yard with the sun on my face. And we all need to do that. There's some good vitamin D that we don't often get when we're holed up in our homes all the time. But it's just to sit there and be aware of your breathing and be aware of the warmth of the sunshine. And then listen to the birds. There's birds almost all the time. They're chirping away, singing, whatever they are doing. There's cars that drive by. There's just to practice being present instead of trying to practice the presence. If we learn to still our minds enough to just be here now, that is the gateway to something deeper. And the whole mindfulness thing, I think, is important because so few of us are mindful. We're not totally aware, not aware of just being present. And so we need a practice like this that we can do. We can actually achieve it. All of us can sit down and close our eyes and be aware of our breath and be aware of the sounds and things around us, the feelings of warmth of sunshine. And how often do we just stop and really appreciate something like that? It's a simple thing, but what I found yesterday again, is that as you do that, the stress begins to leave your body. And what is stress in the body? That's the monkey mind. That's the first manifestation, or the second manifestation, I should say, of the monkey mind. It's all busyness of the mind. And we store it as stress in the body. And that's a pretty big thing to be able to release at that level. So you don't have a mind-opening, enlightened experience with God, but you can have a pretty good experience just being here now, being aware of what's going on and bringing your mind in out of the future and out of the past, which in truth it really can't ever occupy anyway. It's like we can only be here in this now moment. And that's not something that our society has come to grips with, because we're always setting our schedules, following calendars and carrying our phones and staying abreast of what needs to happen in the future. We don't ignore that because we are here, we have a body, we have needs, we have goals, we have all kinds of things that happen on that level. So we're not advocating to get rid of those. So the monkey mind will probably always be with us. The more we recognize it for what it is, the better we become at letting go of its incessant chatter. So again, it goes back, and I'm sure it goes back way beyond Buddhism, but that people have dealt with this problem for a long, long time. That makes me feel better. It's not just me. It's not something that's just occurred because I'm not spiritually advanced enough. We have this mind, and we have it for a reason. It's a very beautiful tool that we have. But we need to understand that it's our tool to control. It's not designed to control us. And so just a few thoughts like this help us maybe get in touch with that monkey mind and put it in its place. All right? Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. If you'd like to help support this ministry, just click the donate card at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Your financial support means a lot to us. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. To subscribe to this channel, simply click our logo. Thanks again for your interest in independent unity, and have a wonderful week.